Alright, for this tutorial on how to make ruffles, we're going to do it a little bit differently. You've probably been told that you can ruffle by doing 2 straight stitch lines and then pulling those like basting lines and then pulling those and it'll, ruffle it up. But this I found works a lot better when you really need dense ruffles. And I know a lot of cosplay and petticoats, this works great for petticoats, that's what this is going to be, need really, really dense ruffles. So this is a trick I learned. What you'll need is what you're going to ruffle, and this is just cheap crochet cotton. It's pretty thin, but it's really pretty strong too. You can get it at any craft stores for like $2. It's really cheap. So, and a spool lasts forever. So what you'll want to do first is to set your sewing machine to a zigzag stitch, because we're going to actually be zigzagging over this cord and using this cord as what to draw the ruffles together. So set your machine to a pretty wide zigzag and a wide stitch. With your regular presser foot in, and that's actually really handy for this, because what you can do is through that little notch there, you can kind of feed the crochet cotton. I hope you can see this. You can kind of set the crochet cotton and use that as a guiding point for when you are, because you don't want to stitch over it, because if you stitch over it, you can't gather it, and then that makes it kind of a moot point. I'm actually going to ruffle down a little bit further, leave a long tail coming off the back, just slide it out, and then you're just zigzagging over the cotton. Now be sure not to pull the crochet cotton when you're doing this, because if you pull it, your tail will come out and it won't work. So you've got to be kind of light with it. You're basically just holding it up to make sure it stays between the 2 zigzags. And you just go. It's a little tricky to get used to holding this with one hand and holding the fabric with another, but with a little bit of practice you get the hang of it pretty quick. Oh, let me go a little bit. Once you get this started, what you can do, so you don't accidentally lose this end tail here, is you can take just a regular pin it in through your fabric, and then if you make a little figure 8 around the pin, that'll hold your tail in place so you don't accidentally yank it out if you're pulling too hard. So just keep doing that all the way down what you want to ruffle, and I'll show you how to actually ruffle it to something. Okay, so assuming I actually got the technology to work this time, I'm going to show you then how to attach your ruffle. So here is my insanely long ruffle piece. As you can tell, it's a little chaotic. I had put the stitching with the crochet cotton on the inside, so I want to stitch obviously on the outside. Because the crochet cotton is such a different color than my fabric, I'll be removing that, so that's another thing you have to keep in mind, is when you're sewing the ruffle down to make sure you don't sew over the crochet cotton. So laying out here, I have the skirt I plan on attaching this ruffle to. I have the very center of it marked out because that's going to be our first point, but I'm also going to need to mark the quarters. So, fold this in half, roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your ruffle is going to hide any mistakes, and like anyone's going to notice an extra 1 inch on one side than the other of ruffle. So mark the quarters, and you can go ahead and mark in between if you feel like you need to have the extra points of reference, because what we're now going to do is take your gathered ruffle, or your ruffle with the cord in it, and we're going to find the middle of it, and this becomes the fun and challenging part of even finding one of the ends. So you'll have to bear with me while, there's one end, and see I did the nice figure 8 thing to lock the threads in so I'm not accidentally losing anything. So there is one end, somewhere is the other. Aha, there's the other end. I'm just going to put them together, and just like this, and keep going until I find the middle. And that point we'll also mark with a pin. See, the more ruffle you do, the more of a pain in the butt this is. If I had someone else here to help me, it would help a lot. 2 people can tackle this when it's this much fabric a lot better than one. So steal a friend, steal a family member. No one's home now, so I guess I gotta fight with it on my own. But alright, so there's my very middle point. I'm just going to mark this with a pin just so I can find it again later on. And then I'm going to go like that, and I'm going to use my pins to kind of weight it down so I don't lose it again. And then we're going to go right back to the beginning where these 2 were and grab your beginning ends and go do-do-do. Yes, you have to sing. You always have to sing while sewing, just like you have to make sound effects. And I now have that very middle and these 2 together, so I'm finding the quarters. All I'm doing is dividing this ruffle into manageable chunks, if you can even say that about this much. I think I might have went a little overboard on the amount of ruffle, but in my mind that's not possible. So here are my quarters. So I'm just going to stick a pin on one side, making sure not to catch the other piece of fabric. And a pin on another. If I was smart, I would be using safety pins because these can come popping out, but I don't know where my safety pins are, so yeah, we're just going to have to hope that they don't come sliding out at us. Alright, and now take your middle point. God, this is a lot of fabric. Take your middle point and match it up with the middle pin on your skirt. See, I have pin here, pin here. You'll want to check that however you're doing the lengths, like if you want the ruffle, you know, like 2 inches longer or 3 inches longer than the skirt, make sure to line it up that way, but I only want mine hanging off just a little bit because the skirt's already so long I'm going to trip over it because I am short. And there, I just pinned the 2 pieces of fabric together for the middle, and now I'm going to scoot it a little bit and try and find, fabric attack. Here I found that quarter marker from between here, and there's the 1/4. So I'm going to line those pins up, again making sure I leave however much off the bottom that I want to leave. Pin the 2 layers together. And then, finally, I can find this end and line it up with the back of the skirt, or wherever your ruffle ends. Again, I'm just eyeballing how much is here, but you can use a clear ruler to make sure, you know, if you want it to be an exact amount lower. And pinning that in place. Now comes the fun part of undo your little figure 8. And this is why, if you're uncomfortable with this, you might want to put a couple more pins in, because we're going to start gathering it down and tacking it down. So I'm going to kind of just guess, I hope you can see this, just trying to guess where the halfway point is, and I'm just going to plunk it arbitrarily like there. Again, making sure I have enough on my hem, sticking out. So a lot of this is just done by eyeball, and you kind of get used to it, and you know, if you need more fullness in the back or the front or something like that. Now all I'm doing is I'm going to pull this end, and once I hit my first pin, I'm going to just kind of shift it over. If you keep pulling, you can keep shifting your cord. So as I lose my glasses, I'm going to just keep tightening and pulling on this end until, holy crap, the center front's a long way away. Maybe I'll just show you a quarter. Until I get it gathered down, and if you get bunches, you can just pull on them to kind of evenly distribute them. And however you want them to look, and then just start pinning them in place. It's as simple as that, you know, distribute them as evenly as you want them to be. Again, if you want all the fullness like in the back, like if you have a train or a bustle or something that needs extra support, you can obviously make them denser the further towards the back you go. And then you might just not want to divide in quarters. You might just want to find the half and put just a little bit in front and a ton back here. This is also where the yellow-headed pins come in handy, is you can find them, because I don't know how well the camera's picking up, but they disappear real quick in there with how dense of a ruffle this is. So just keep checking your hem every now and again to make sure you don't have too much, you know, it pulled up too high or too low. And just keep pinning them in place until you get them where you need them to be and as full as you need them to be. I want them evenly distributed, and that's just what I'm trying to do. A little bit more there. All right. Now, once you do this with the whole thing, which I'm not going to waste your time doing, what you'll want to do is take this on your machine, and actually you can't even see the white cord. Oh, nice. The crochet cotton, you can't even see it, it just disappears into this. You'll want to stitch this ruffle down. Usually you want to add a lot more pins to make sure to hold it in place. You'll just stitch it down right below your gathering line, or right above it, or if you don't care about taking out the crochet cotton later, right over it. And just sew it down with a straight stitch. You might have to go over it once or twice just in case, because sometimes, you know, things rip off or weird things happen when you're sewing. And once you've sewn it down, you will have an incredibly foofy ruffle that is so much easier than doing the 2 basting threads, because I always wind up breaking at least one of them, or they look like poop. Yeah, and it's really easy. So I hope that helps you with your various cosplay or other sewing problems. And make stuff. Show me. Make it. Send me pictures. I am Sam, as I didn't introduce myself sooner, also known as Taliac on the internet just about anywhere, including DeviantArt. And this is my first video tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed it and learned something, and hopefully there will be more of these in the future.